This video is brought to you by Envato. In this course, I'll show you how to create a Figma prototype that replicates the functionality of a mobile e-commerce cart. We'll be using some pretty advanced prototyping techniques like setting variables, using conditionals, and also working with variable modes. And if you're new to Figma prototyping, don't worry, I'll explain each step clearly so you can follow along no matter your skill level. Let's begin. And just in case you're not familiar with variables or prototyping in Figma, here's a very quick guide. Let's start with variables. In Figma, a variable is an entity which you can reuse in multiple places, and you can access variables by clicking on the canvas and going in the inspector, clicking local variables. You can organize variables in collections. These are basically groups of variables. You can access them from here. You can create a new collection, and then you can switch between them like so. Now, a variable can have four different types: color, number, string, and Boolean. Boolean is basically a binary value. It's true or false, 1 or 0, on or off. You get the idea. String is basically a piece of text. Number, color, well, these are pretty self-explanatory. So how exactly do you use them? I have this color here, FFB9A3. And this is the color that I'm reusing in my UI. So I want to turn that into a variable. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to create a variable, a color variable, and I'm going to say, for example, accent, and I'm going to paste in that value. Now, I can select all of these, and I can open up the color picker, go to libraries, and choose accent. So in my selection here, that hard-coded hex color code is now replaced by the variable that I just created. And I can do the same here. See all the colors, choose that from the library. And now, if I want to change that color, all I gotta do is change the variable. Let's say I want to use a different hue, so I'm just gonna adjust the slider. And by doing that, all the elements that use my color variable are changed at the same time. Maybe I want to store this title and this title in a variable. So let's create one for a string. Let's call it product1, and let's call this elegant pink. Let's create another one, product2. Let's call that elegant purple. So now what I can do is select the element that I want to apply the variable to, go to the inspector under the text panel, click the variable icon, and Figma shows me the compatible variables, those that have the type of string. So I can select, product2 here. I can select product1 here. And now it's exactly the same thing. I can change the variable name here, and it's gonna automatically update in my design. Now, prototyping allows you to make your designs interactive. So if you're showing it to your client or your team, they have the option to, click on buttons, click on links, and those will perform certain actions like take you to a different screen or, scroll down the page. You can do a lot with prototyping, but let me show you a very, very basic example. So in this app, I have the home screen and the product screen, and I would like to add an action to this element so that when I click it, it takes me to the product page. To do that, we go to the prototype tab. Here we can choose a device that we can preview our project on. And also if we wanted portrait or landscape, there are a lot of settings here. But basically we select the element that we want to act as a trigger. In my case, it's this image. And then we just click and drag onto the screen that I want to navigate to. And in this dialog, I select the trigger. In my case, it's on tap or on click. And what do I want to do? And I want to navigate to screen 02 product, which is this frame. And I can choose how to do that animation. Is it instant? Is it with dissolve, which is like a fade in, or with smart animate, which is a little bit more complex, so I'm not gonna touch on that. You also have some default transitions here, but in my case, let's do instant. When I did that, Figma automatically created a prototyping flow for me, which I can preview by clicking on this icon. So it brings up the device that I selected and my prototype. So now I can click and it's gonna take me to the new screen. And on the new screen, I can select, this back icon, and I can do another action. I can say that when I tap on this, I want to navigate back to the home screen. Let's do a dissolve here so you can see the difference. So now when I preview this, I click on the product, it takes me to the product page, and then when I click back, it fades in to the previous screen. And that's basically a prototype. You can do a lot with prototypes. That's just a basic example of how to use prototyping. You can do a lot more. Now, let me show you how you can combine the two, so prototyping and variables, to create something that's beyond, let's just move from frame A to frame B. I'm talking about more interactive prototypes. This is the project we'll be working on. I have 3 screens here. In the end, we'll be creating this functional cart. But for now, let's focus our attention on something a little bit simpler, and that is this quantity picker here. So we have a plus, a minus, and a 1. And the idea with this in any cart really is when you click the plus, it increments the quantity by 1, and when you click the minus, it decreases the quantity by 1. And we can easily do that in Figma with prototyping. Now, the first step I'm going to do is actually delete all of these variables that we created here, just to start fresh, and we're going to create the new one. And we're going to select number, and we're going to call it product cart total. And we're going to initialize it with the value of 1. Now we can select the text and apply the variable that we just created. Now let's move on to prototyping. I'm going to select the plus, and I can add an interaction by clicking here. So on tap, I want to set a variable. So I can select which variable to modify. In my case, product cart total, and that's going to be equal to what? It's going to be equal to product cart total plus 1, and we hit enter. So again, what happens here? When we tap the plus icon, we set the variable of product cart total to itself plus 1. We basically incremented by 1. So now let's actually preview the prototype, and I'm just going to create a simple frame here, and I'm going to bring in a copy of that component. Okay, so let's just focus on this. Let's preview, and you'll see that when I click this, it increments that value by 1. Now, how do we decrease the value? Well, we select the minus icon, we add an interaction, on tap, we set the variable, product cart total will be equal to product cart total minus 1. Let's preview that again. So now it's plus and minus. Super, super simple. All right, so now that you understand the basics, let's move on to a more challenging prototype. This video is brought to you by Envato, unlimited creative assets all in one place. Follow the link in the description and start creating now. Before we begin, just a quick note. The advanced prototyping features I'm going to show you in this video are part of or are available if you're using the professional plan and above. So not available in the free plan, you need to make a paid upgrade to use them. With that said, let's get to prototyping. The structure of our cart is very simple. Here we have a frame that I've set to a fixed height, and the frame has auto layout, and it displays the items vertically. Each cart item consists of an image, a title, and a price. And then we have the quantity picker and a delete button. Now, every item is a component, and every image is also a separate component because I want to create 4 items in my cart. So I'm just going to duplicate this 3 times, and I'm going to change the image for the other 3. So we're going to select here Adidas, elegant pink, and elegant purple. Now we also need to change the text and the price for each item. But instead of hard coding these, let's use an advanced feature in Figma, and that's variable modes. So if we open up the variables, we have the one that we created earlier, and we're going to keep that, but we're going to put it in a different collection. So we're renaming this collection to product variables, just to make things a little bit easier to manage. And I'm going to create some new variables here. One, product name, that's string. I'm going to create a number, product base price. I'm going to create another variable that's for product total price. And product total price basically is the base price times the times how many products of that type we have in the cart. And each of these has a certain default value. So this works great for one product, but I have 4 products here. And to display these independently, we can use something called variable modes. Now, variable modes can be created by clicking the plus here. And let's rename these to, let's say, type 2. Let's make this bigger. Let's rename this first mode to type 1. This is going to be type 3. This is going to be type 4. Variable modes, they're really cool for organizing your variables even further than just collections. Very handy, for example, you want to create different color schemes, or maybe you want to make a dark mode and a light mode. There are many, many use cases for them, but in our case, we're going to use them to store the individual title, base price, total price, and how many products we have in cart for each of our 4 products. So let's start with the product names. We're going to have Air Jordan here. The second one is going to be Adidas. This is going to be elegant pink and elegant purple. Let's set the base prices, 90, 110, 160, and let's say 140. And the total price, this is supposed to be a number, not a string, so my bad. Let's delete that. Let's create it again as a number. And we're going to leave 0 as default because this is a value that's going to be calculated dynamically. Okay, so with these variables created, let's apply them to our main product component. I'm going to select the title and assign the variable of product name. I'm going to select the price, and notice the price here is made up of 2 elements. We have the dollar symbol and then the number. So let's assign product total price. And here, let's assign to product cart total. Great. So now if we look in the final screen, everything says Air Jordan. But what we can do is select each component instance, go to the change variable mode icon here, and we go to product variables. This is a duplicate here because I was playing around with it earlier, but choose the last one. This is the one that we created now, and just choose type 2. So now the title changes. Go here, do the same, change to type 3. Go here, do the same, change to type 4. Now you'll see that if I'm going to change, let's say, the total price for these products, the values will update automatically and independently. So my fourth product will use the value from type 4, my third will use the type 3 value, and so on and so forth. Let's reset these. So now that we've assigned everything to the correct elements, let's start prototyping. And let's preview this. And right off the bat, we don't actually see the price for these. That's because the price is set to the product total price, which is currently set to 0. We need to calculate this as the base price times how many products we have selected. So let's do the following. We need to calculate these on load, right? So when the prototype loads, and we need to do it for each individual product. So I'm going to select the product here, the main component, and I'm going to add an interaction, select after delay, set a 1 millisecond delay. This basically means as soon as it loads, we're going to have our actions. So we're going to set the variable of product total price as the product base price times the product cart total, and we hit enter. So let's see if that works. We open up the flow, and surely enough, each value here is calculated automatically. If, for instance, I were to set the product cart total for Air Jordan to 2 by default, and we refresh the prototype, the value that's calculated and displayed is now 180, which is the base 90 times 2. Let's bring that over back to 1. Another thing that we can do here is update the cart total. So we have all these individual product totals, but they need to add up to the total here in the cart. And we do that the following way. We create a new variable. This time, let's go to collection 2, and let's rename this to cart variables. We'll create a new number variable called cart total. Now, we go back to this interaction, and we add another one, another action for set variable. And here we just basically say cart total is going to be equal to cart total plus the product total price, and hit enter. And now we need to select this element, this 0 here, and assign it to cart total. So now we can go back to prototyping, press Shift space, that's a shortcut for opening up the prototype. And surely enough, all of these values add up to the cart total. But this is a bit too big. It's $1,000. The total amount is just 500. So the first two equal to 200, the last two equal to 300. So why is that value doubled? Well, from what I can tell, that cart total variable needs to be initialized somehow. It needs to be set to 0. So we can easily do that by selecting my main frame here, and we can add an interaction. After delay, we set a variable, we initialize the cart total to 0. And of course, we set the delay here to 1 millisecond, so this action executes immediately after load. So now if we preview, the cart is now displaying the correct amount. Now, I also want this value here to adjust when I'm increasing or decreasing the number of products in cart. And we have another problem here. We need to create the interaction for the minus. So let's do that. Yeah, let's actually work on the main component here. So add an interaction. On tap, we set the variable product cart total equals to product cart total minus 1. Okay, so let's test that. Plus, plus, minus, minus, minus. Now, here we have another problem. If I just keep on hitting minus, it goes into the negative values. And obviously, I can't have a negative value in here. So to prevent that, we're actually going to use another advanced prototyping feature called conditionals. And a conditional is basically an if statement. So if a certain condition is met, then we execute action A. Else, we execute action B. In our case, we select this interaction, we click plus, and we choose conditional. And the conditional says this: if the product cart total is greater than 1, then we can drag this action in the if statement. Okay? So this means if the cart total, the product cart total, is at least 2, then I can decrease that number. Otherwise, don't do anything. So now if we preview this, you'll see that we can decrease the number until it gets to 1. After that, the minus doesn't do anything. All right, now, when we click plus, let's increase the price we see here under the product title. So over here, we're incrementing the product cart total by 1. Good. We also need to set the product total price as the base price times the product cart total. So let's see that in action. Click plus, and the total will update as well. I also need to update the cart total. So when I hit plus, I'm going to do another set variable, and I'm going to update the cart total. And that's going to be equal to the cart total plus the product base price. So let's preview. And now that works great. Let's do the same for the minus. So when I subtract an item from the cart, we need to subtract its base price from this field and also from this field. So then we select the minus, and under the conditional, we can add a new set variable, and we're going to set product total price is going to be equal to the base price times cart total, and we can collapse this and drag it inside the if statement. And another one, that's for the cart total. So cart total is going to be equal to cart total minus product base price. And again, collapse and draw and drag it, under the conditional. So now it goes the other way as well. Now, what about this delete button? When we click it or when we tap it, I want to remove this item completely from my cart. And that's going to do two things. First of all, we need to update the cart total right here. And we also need to update the number of items in the cart. And of course, we need to visually hide that item from my design, from my screen. So let's start by creating a new variable inside the product variables. And we're going to create a Boolean. We'll call it product visibility. And we're going to set it to true on all 4 elements. Now, let's select all of these components. And in the layer panel, we right-click the eye icon and we assign its visibility to the variable that we just created, product visibility. So now if I open up the local variables, I can toggle the visibility to any of these products on or off, like so. That's another great use case for variables. Let's also finish setting up the variables. So if I go to cart variables, we have the cart total, but we also need a number variable for the cart count. By default, let's set this to 4. And let's assign that to the text element right here. Like so. Okay, now back to prototyping. Let's select the delete button. And we're going to add an interaction on tap. We're going to set the variable of product visibility to false. So that works the following way. Delete, and it's hidden. Delete, and it's hidden. Let's update the cart total. So we're going to set a new variable. Cart total is going to be equal to cart total minus product total price. Let's see how that works. So if I delete this one, that's $90. We're going to have 500 minus 90. Let's delete another one. And now the cart total is going to be 300. Perfect. Let's say I have two of these. That's 320. If I delete it, it's going to subtract 320, which leaves me with just 140. Great. Let's also update the number of items in the cart. So in here, we're going to set yet another variable. Cart count is going to be equal to cart count minus 1. So now we have 4 items. Delete. Now we have 3. Now we have 2, 1, and 0. And finally, when we get to this point where we have no items in the cart, the checkout button needs to be disabled, right? Because there's no point in going to checkout. That's super easy to do. Here I have a component for the checkout button, and this one has 2 variants. The property is called state, and the first variant is the default. The second variant is disabled. Now, the names of these variables are, the names of these variants are important. So remember, default and disabled. Let's create a new variable in the cart collection. That's going to be a string. We're going to call it button state. And by default, I'm going to type default, which means we're going to be displaying this variant. Now, to link that variable that we created to the variant that's being displayed, we can select the instance of the component. And if we hover on state here, we can link it to a variable, button state, in my case. So if I change this from default to disabled, that's going to display the disabled variant or the default. Now let's change that variable dynamically. So go back to prototype, select the delete button, and we're going to add a conditional here. We need to check if we've reached 0 items. So conditional, we're going to say if cart count is equal to 0, then we set a variable button state to disabled. And this is going to be a string. So that's how the conditional looks like. If the cart count is 0, when we tap this delete button, we set the variable of button state to disabled. And because this button is directly tied to the variable button state, it's going to display the correct variant. So now when we preview and we delete all the items from the cart, that checkout button now becomes disabled. So let's do a recap of what we created in this final part of the video. We now have a fully working shopping cart. We can increase or decrease the number of products, and the price, the product price, and the total price will be updated automatically. We used variable modes to dynamically set the title and the price for each of these 4 products. And we also created actions for this delete button that will, first of all, hide that item from my cart. It will update the cart total and also the cart number of items. And finally, we wrote a condition that checks whether or not we still have items in the cart, and if we don't, it disables the checkout button. And that's it for this short course prototyping and variables can be used in lots of different ways. So hopefully this video gave you some ideas for your own projects. Thank you very much for watching. As always, don't forget to check out the Envato Tuts Plus YouTube channel for more content like this, but also to learn about web design, web development, and much more. It's all free, so make sure to also hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'm Adi, and until next time, take care.